Hello, everybody. Welcome. Deborah Hallam here from Unfurl. And today I am sharing episode 2 of the Empowerment series, which I began with Source Delivering Wisdom in March of 2025. And here we are in September of 2025. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce to you the frequency, the feeling of unity consciousness. That is something that we all hold within us innately, whether we're aware of it or not. My name, Deborah, has a meaning of the bee, the insect, the bee. And so I feel really strongly within myself how each of us as a unique part of the whole is really special. And so I'd like to just invite that sense of our community together through unity consciousness, through oneness before we begin. And I wanted to show you something interesting too. So several years ago on holiday, we were chatting with a beekeeper who keeps bees in a very natural way, doesn't introduce any plastic hive element into the beehives and just lets the bees do their thing. And she was selling a bee's life's work. I wanted to show you that this equates to the work of a bee during its lifetime. So one bee can help to create this much honey that is contributed to the whole. And so I'm also just holding and honoring with reverence each of our contributions to the whole. So this episode is focused on the feeling senses. It was very interesting that in a quiet moment earlier this week, a stream of wisdom arrived and I hurriedly noted it all down. There was almost within this message of the feeling senses, this beautiful pattern of unfurling, which I'm so passionate about, where there's a beginning for something. And then as that unfurls and gets bigger, that there's a greater and greater awareness and a whole lot of a journey that we take with that and understanding that and embodying that. And the same can be said for the sense of feeling. So it was beautiful that the sense of feeling began through physical feeling. So touch, for example. So we know when we touch something hot or cold, or if we walk into something and, we stub our toe or knock our elbow, or, someone tickles us or hugs us, we have that physical feeling. And then there's other feelings where we can identify when we feel happy or sad or upset or agitated, overwhelmed, overjoyed, all of those feelings. And the next layer to that is, well, when we are in a state of feeling happiness or overwhelm or anger, when we sit within that, where can we actually have a sensation somewhere in our body? And then when we start to understand that, and we learn how it actually feels to be us. And then when we understand that, when we understand what it feels to be us, and we understand the language of how we have these feeling senses of emotions, can we then identify when we're having that emotion or when something external to us sweeps into our energy field and we feel that? So it's really beautiful how it starts with self, and this beautiful journey of the feeling senses expands and gets greater and becomes an awareness of our unity consciousness and how we're connected, because we start to recognize that we do feel things outside of ourselves a whole lot more often than we appreciate until we open ourselves up to the journey, the space, and the contemplation of understanding that and how that is for each of us. So, why is it important to take time when we're feeling something? And it's simply to be able to find where in our body are we feeling a sensation. So it could be that when we are feeling overwhelmed and disoriented and scattered, we might feel something around our head. We might feel that everything is in motion up here and not centered and still and stable. Now, these are just ideas that I'm putting out there through my own experience. What I'd really love for you to do is every so often pause and just reflect on a time when you were having that feeling of overwhelm or feeling scattered yourself, and discover what does that feel like for you, so that you know what the signature of that is within your physical and energetic body. Where is that for you? Because it will be different. We're all different. We're all unique. And what happens when we have a feeling? So we have a sensation somewhere and we ignore it. So have you had a time in your life when you had a feeling somewhere within you which indicated a knowing about something, but you didn't spend much time with it and you ignored it? And then later in reflection, you saw that, oh, actually, if I hadn't have ignored that sense that I had, that feeling that I had, and I had done something with that, then maybe something different would have happened. And that's not to say that ignoring and having a journey through the ignoring of that feeling sensation is right or wrong, because it all teaches us something. Sometimes this can be so subtle. So it's wonderful that our feeling senses are this wonderful alarm system, or a system of alertness, or a system that is pulling us into our own self-awareness to draw our attention to something. So there's a lot of teaching which is so beneficial around if we have an anger response, a joy response, a sad response to something, that may be getting triggered because we have an unhealed part of ourselves that we need to explore. So that's one layer. Or it could be that knowing feeling that you have somewhere. So perhaps you feel that in your gut. You just feel maybe something tighten a little bit, something in your gut that says, hang on a minute, we just need to take a moment because all might not be as it seems. And then there's the making sense of it. Is what I'm feeling mine? Or am I actually feeling something that belongs to someone else? Is how I've just felt, is that relevant to where I find myself right now? Or perhaps how I'm suddenly feeling relates to a memory that I've just had a response to as it sort of traveled through my thinking mind as I'm processing something. Is the feeling in proportion to the experience that I'm having? Or is it bigger? Did the feeling that I'm suddenly having feel like it just dropped out of nowhere for no particular reason? Or do I feel like I just kind of walked into this feeling? And does what I'm feeling feel like a, a normal feeling for me? Like in the range of my own sadness to happiness? Does how I feel right now feel in my range of feeling senses? And these are some of the things that we can explore to begin to consider whether what we're feeling actually belongs to us or is something that our internal radar system is connecting with that's external to us. It doesn't actually belong in our own energetic field. So maybe you think actually that kind of feels out of place. Like up until a moment ago, I was actually feeling quite cool, calm, and collected. And now suddenly I'm not. I feel something else. Maybe you have walked through a space. Maybe you've walked through a busy shopping mall. Maybe you have been in a movie theatre. Maybe you've been in someone's home and something just doesn't feel right. When you arrived, you were quite settled in yourself, but now you're there, or now you've been there and you've come out, you feel different. So maybe what you're feeling doesn't belong to you. Or maybe you're feeling something through the airwaves, through the unified field, the quantum field, through our unity consciousness that is connected with someone that you're close to. So perhaps someone you're close to is having an experience and you're just feeling a reverberation of that through the field. So this is why the feeling senses are so interesting to explore because they're not neatly contained in a box. They're not as simple as perhaps we think they might be. They're actually really beautiful. And they can take us on the most incredible journey when we start to understand this gift that we have as human beings of this feeling sense. So, because feelings can be really big, the mastery is not just recognizing that you've just stepped into a big response to something that is yours. You might be confronted with something that's got and you're having a reaction and you're feeling all these things, but it's also about learning when you have the subtle responses with where when they're so subtle, it's important to understand in the feeling senses of your physical and energetic body, where do I have that experience? So that when they're not big and out there, I can still recognize them for being the same thing, even though the feeling is much more subtle within me. So let's say, for example, someone says to you, "Oh, what are you doing this weekend? If you're not doing too much, would you like to come and join me and some other people for XYZ?" Has there been a time when you've been in that situation where your body has just felt like a big no? Can you take yourself back to the last time you felt that response in your body and identify it? Maybe it could be butterflies in your belly going, "No, don't think that's a good idea." Maybe you might hold your breath for a bit longer than you usually do. Maybe you stiffen up a little bit. Maybe there's something that feels like that's not quite sitting right and you feel a little bit uneasy. So that might be something that you feel in your gut area. What about if someone's not being honest with you? Have you ever had an experience where you knew that someone wasn't being honest? How did you know? What did that feel like? To feel the sensation of an untruth. Did you feel maybe some sort of spiky kind of energy, kind of an electric type feeling? Or maybe your body just went into heat, almost like on full alert, like, "Whir, whir, whir." That's a lie, that's a lie. So it's really fascinating how our energy bodies are constantly transmitting and receiving and helping us to understand what is happening around us and helping us in the way that we might like to respond to our experiences. It's really beautiful. So just remember that how you might experience something as a feeling sense will be different to someone else. I did mention that before. And so you could almost think of that as the language of your soul talking to you, and how spending time with these feeling senses could be the beginning of learning the language of your soul and really opening up into a hugely powerful relationship with your higher self. And then with beyond that, with source energy itself. So there's a really important practice for us all, and that is to start to notice for yourself when you start with the big emotional responses, perhaps. So start with when you hear some really good news and you feel lit up and you want to smile and laugh and dance around the room. And how does that feel as an energetic sense in your body? Does your energy field suddenly feel like it's 10 times bigger? And does it feel like there's a lot of movement in there? What does it feel like for you? And why would we want to know? Why would we want to understand that language of ourself anyway? Well, it's because it's important for us to be able to understand when we're having a feeling sense that's ours, and when we're having a feeling sense that isn't ours. And that might help you respond to the situation that you find yourself in. So, for example, you might go and have a coffee with someone. So, you arrive at a cafe, you order a coffee, you sit down together, and within a few minutes, you might start to feel different to how you began your day. And so you might wonder, hmm, well, if I wasn't feeling like this earlier, and now suddenly, for no apparent reason, I am, is that mine? And in asking that question, it's also helpful to identify what it feels like to have a yes response. What does a feeling sensation of a yes feel like for you? And what does a feeling sensation of a no feel like for you? And trust whatever you get, because this is a big lifelong learning journey of understanding yourself at these greater levels. And so if you have the realization for yourself that that change in how you're feeling isn't actually how you're feeling, but your radar system is actually picking up on how the person in front of you is feeling, well, that might just help you to have more compassion. So maybe what's coming out of the mouth of the person you're with is saying this, but in actual fact, you can feel that they're feeling that. And so having the awareness of when someone might be trying to mask how they really feel, but you know there's actually a little bit of this happening, then you can just have a little bit more care and compassion and softness, perhaps, with them. Doesn't mean you need to probe and find out what that's all about, but it just allows you to hold compassion. And so, because the person you're with is a radar as well, then their radar system will be able to feel the compassion that you have, and that might just help their day as well. And so, this is where we start to find out and have evidence on a daily basis and frequently each day, eventually, that we're all connected. And as we walk further on this journey of unfurling and who we are becoming more and more and more expansive, then we need to understand this about ourselves and understand the real magic of who we are. And can you imagine a world where everyone was really tuned into themselves and then could sense others? Could you imagine the equivalent of that in a beehive, where a bee comes in, it's really worn out and tired, and suddenly all the other bees around it get the sense that, oh, our friend has just flown in and they're exhausted. They're way more tired than they should be. even though they're bravely contributing their pollen and making honey, we need to surround that bee and let them know that we know and that we care. Wouldn't that be amazing? Well, maybe you visit somewhere and you feel after a moment or two of being in a place, you just feel a bit out of sorts. And you think, hang on a moment, when I walked in, I wasn't feeling out of sorts, but now I'm here in this space. My feeling senses are just feeling a little bit, And so those feelings really allow us to make some decisions about, do we stay? Do we stay in a place with that energy? Or do we excuse ourselves and remove ourselves from that? Or can we put some barrier around our energy field that keeps the stuff that we don't want, that doesn't belong, out of our energy field and allow us to stay contained within our own energy field? So there's also that learning as well. So all of this constant signaling we're getting through our feeling senses and our radar allows us to make so many more decisions from a place of discernment around what really feels good for us and what actually feels a bit off, whether we stay, wrap ourselves in some protection, or whether we go. So tools for protection. The main one would be to ask that you have your energy field wrapped in a layer of golden light, and that golden bubble of light reflects off anything that's not for your highest good. And so it's permeable, so anything that is beneficial to you will still permeate and enter your energy field. But anything that's not meant for you won't be able to enter. And that will help you maintain your own sanctity, your own sovereignty in any situation. So once you begin to understand these feeling senses and your energy field and how it's communicating with you constantly about how either you feel or what's happening around you in very subtle ways, that can be hugely empowering because it allows you to make decisions on a completely different level for yourself. And you can build that much stronger bond with your knowing who you are, with your higher self, with your soul, and with source energy. And that might enable you to open up even further channels where you're able to converse with your body itself more clearly about what it needs. So your feeling senses will expand even further into, what does my body need, or what doesn't it need? So I had an experience of this last night. I had an experience of ignoring my alert system. I got the family meal ready and my body didn't want it. My body looked at that meal and said, yep, there's some really great things in that meal, but I don't want it. Now, I paid the price for that because several hours later, my whole digestive system became very inflamed and very uncomfortable for several hours, while it processed this meal, which had no ill effect on anyone else in the family. Now, had I listened to that feeling sense of my body communicating with me and saying, hey, no, then I could have avoided feeling very uncomfortable for several hours. So there is this wonderful symbiotic relationship that your energy bodies have with your physical body. And so we can begin to not just think about how we want to keep our physical body well through what we might drink or eat or how we move it, but we can treat our energetic body in the same way. We can treat it as something really special and unique to us, which it is, and honor what it needs. So, how you feel, these sensory feelings you get, might help you to discern when to perhaps unplug from something. So, several days ago, I hadn't read any news headlines whatsoever. So I don't listen to the news anymore, but I do take in headlines and the odd thing. So I have an awareness of what's happening. And if I want to dive in further, then I will. But I do it in a very discerning way because what I've discovered is that the news can actually really drain me and completely change how I feel in my energetic body. So I ended up going down a little bit of a rabbit hole with some news headlines. And before I knew it, I realized, oh, so in this rabbit hole, you're now feeling icky, sticky, and heavy because of the energy signature of what you are choosing to imbibe into your energy field. So what we imbibe physically is equally as important as what we're imbibing energetically. And our feeling senses can really help us to understand when to hold something out and observe it from a neutral space and when to bring it in a bit closer for closer inspection, but with that awareness of when our internal feeling senses start to say, oh, hang on, I think that's enough. As I can feel that our frequency is starting to drop and we're not feeling so great. Or conversely, when we're listening to something, I enjoy listening to several people on YouTube, and I will know when something is really hitting the spot because I feel empowered by it. You know, I feel lighter. I feel good. And if I don't, then I just turn it off. So this is all really, really important for us to start to grasp the concept of our feeling senses. Now, the next expanded layer to this, I mean, there's just layer upon layer upon layer of this wonderful attunement and awareness to our feeling senses. And that is building a bond with the spiritual team that we have around us and how they might work to get our attention energetically through our feeling senses. So how that might work for you will be unique. So whether they do communicate with you through your feeling senses or not, they may choose another methodology, perhaps through seeing senses and deepening into those. But as your awareness of yourself becomes amplified and your awareness of what is not your energy is enhanced, slowly but surely, you will also be able to discern not only the things that are not so great, don't belong to you, but also to sense things that are really beautiful that don't belong to you. And that could well be having this feeling sense of your really beautiful and benevolent spirit team that are around you. And so they will take us all on a magical mystery journey of unfurling into that beautiful level of mastery of being able to commune with them. So again, taking that theme of the bee, the community theme, the interconnectedness theme, the unity consciousness theme, this exploring our feeling senses as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, then we're also learning how absolutely incredible our connection is way beyond self, way beyond our own I am. And so when you start to have these feelings of recognizing these feeling senses of when something is outside of you that you're feeling, that doesn't belong to you, but belongs to something outside of you, then there's more to learn with that around, am I feeling something that feels benevolent? Am I feeling something that is pretending to be benevolent? Or am I feeling something that is clearly not in my best interests? And what I recommend at this point is a practice of standing powerfully in your sovereignty. So, how to do that quickly is to invite your source energy down through your chakras, entering through your crown chakra into your physical body and out through the chakras that exist through the base of your feet. And connect yourself to the energy field of the planet of Gaia and have the intention of filling yourself with your light very powerfully, and then push it out into your energy fields and surround yourself in gold light. Now, you can do that like that. Just have the intention so that you're holding yourself strongly in your sovereignty, fully connected to source, fully connected to Gaia, and fully protected. And then explore. And in that exploration, you might come to notice when your benevolent spirit team is present and the way in which they get your attention. So, through your feeling senses, a really common one that people share about is having an itchy nose. So, they just can't, there's this little itch right at the end of their nose. Or perhaps they just feel like a breath of wind that just gently moves past, and it kind of, the alert system is feeling that gentle sensation. The hairs on your arms stand up. You feel that. Or maybe you feel a really beautiful warmth from your heart space. So there's no rules, because this is a unique relationship that you have with your support team in spirit. And so as you're unfurling and opening and understanding and discerning and being powerful and sovereign, how you connect and how they're able to communicate with you is going to be another phase of learning the language of you and learning the language of that connection that you have. And that just brings and even amplifies and enhances even more your ability to feel supported and connected and be able to discern and live your life experience in a completely different way, with being really in tune with your feeling senses. And so I really encourage me to continue my journey and you of making self-awareness a priority, because no one knows us like we do. We're the only being within ourselves that can understand and feel the way that we feel through our feeling senses. So I just want to end by referring back to this beautiful book that I contributed to. Let me see if I can get it to show up. There it is. Channeled Soul Messages, Guidance for Thriving in the World Today. I'll leave a link below. That book is available on Amazon. It's very, very, very affordable. And when I channeled for that book, I felt this constant nudge from Spirit suggesting it was a really, really important time for us to take the reins of sovereignty for ourselves. And that really requires from us that we take the time to contemplate and to unplug from the constant distractions that pull us away from exploring our inner world, our depths, our real who we are as our expanded selves. Because in that spaciousness that we create for contemplating and attunement and awareness, that's where we find who we really are beneath all the layers of everything else. We find ourselves completely unmasked and in our truth, and away from all of the external noise is where we can find a level of coherence, and we find connection instead of separateness. Because as I've shared, when we deepen and deepen and deepen and unfurl further and further and further, our interconnectedness, not our separateness, but our interconnectedness becomes fully apparent. So whereabouts in your day can you dedicate space to some contemplation and self-discovery and start really attuning yourself into your feeling senses? And on that note, I will leave you to ponder all that I've shared, and I would just like to acknowledge Source for delivering all of that so eloquently not too long ago, and really beautifully showing how step by step by step we can expand and expand and expand and expand and expand, and why it's important. Now, if you need a hand at any point in time on your journey and you have been doing the work on yourself, but you get a little bit stuck and you would like to connect with source energy, then I can be a conduit for that. I work with people one-on-one anywhere in the world. So if you look at my website link, which is below, you'll see all the different ways that I am able to provide that connection for you and give you perhaps some clarity or some healing, some tools, whatever it is that is going to be helpful for the next phase of your journey in this moment. So until the next episode, it's been wonderful to spend time with you. And if there's anyone you know who would benefit from this wisdom shared from Source, I encourage you to share it and subscribe and do all those things so that Source's wisdom reaches all of us, and together we continue to unfurl and expand beyond measure. Okay, everyone, go well.